in case those of you who don't know, I am Deborah Nowers, and I am I'm still right now the program chair for the Wawenoc chapter. Oh, and vice president. And with that, and $7.43, I can get a coffee.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, Carol Stahl is my friend. We met in the strangest of ways. She joined the Maine Genealogical Society, and her application came in, and she said she was Carol Kimball Stahl. And a bunch of you know that I am a Kimball.
5 times over.
So I wrote her a little note, said, hey, are you a Kimball descendant? And she said, oh, yes. And so we started, and then her family lived in Belfast, but they also lived on Islesboro. And she was coming up, and she was going to be in Islesboro, and she said, can I see you, whatever? And I said, well, come to dinner. And so she came to dinner, and that turned into, when I'm in the area, can I stay with you, Deb? And so we have become friends. And when Carol told me about her postcard, I went. She also roped me into being the Kimball Family Association. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, she was giving a talk at the Kimball Family Association on postcards. And when I was there, and I said, oh, Carol. So she has been you've seen her up there on the screen because she's coming from North Carolina. So she's here today. And she's going to give a somewhat modified version of the postcard talk that I heard before. And it's very interesting. So Carol Stahl, you're on.
Are you sure? All right, let's see if I can get organized here. Again, as Deb said, I did this talk for my Kimball Family Association. We had a reunion last year, and I came up and did a postcard, but that was a different audience. That was a Kimball audience. I did this talk also in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where I live, and that was a different audience. That was an Ollie group doing family history, so that was a different audience. But it's pretty daunting to be doing this talk to Belfast because y'all know Islesboro. So I went back in and I revamped and tried to make it more pertinent to the current audience. And so I hope that you enjoy it. I've got these postcards that Deb's going to pass around for me so y'all can look at them while I'm doing this. And then we'll lay them up here and you can look at them some more. But many of the cards, of course, not all 300. And according to Deb, I think it was 378 postcards. Yep. She did a good job of it. She learned her A's, her 1s and 2s, and knows how to count. But anyway, so they're up here to be looked at. I certainly hope you enjoy that. I've used a lot of them, but not all 378 in the slideshow. I know that we've got a Zoom audience, and I wanted them to be able to appreciate as much as they could, because y'all are lucky. You get a chance to touch the postcards. You get a chance to see them in person up front and see things that are not going to be on the screen. But anyway, this is using postcards to enhance families' history. I'm going to talk about the history of postcards so you have some sense of how it places in your mail and things that you may have already at home. And then I'm going to show what kinds of things I learned from my grandmother's collection. My grandmother was Marion Coombs Kimball. She was the town librarian in Islesboro for a number of years. One day I'll figure out how many, but many, many years she was the town librarian. She began collecting postcards. As best I can tell, the earliest one is around 1906. And apparently that was the thing to do when they first came out, was to collect postcards. So she did that. And the golden age is up through 1950 or so, 1950, which is when she got married. So there's a good period. And then there's some after that. But by and large, they're going to be early 1900s. History of postcards, like I just said. But the postcards in the United States, there was the European nations began these before, but in 1861, Congress passed an act allowing privately owned printed cards, 1 ounce or less, to be sent in the U.S. mail. This guy named Charlton patents a postal card. However, timing being everything, the outbreak of the Civil War, they didn't get a whole lot of attention. After the war, another gentleman named Lippman buys his rights and begins reissuing the postcards with his name. In 1870, the postmaster recommends a 1-cent government postal card to be approved by Congress. 2 years later, Congress finally passes legislation for a 1-cent government-only postcard. Privately printed cards were still allowed. You could still send out a privately produced one, but now you got to pay twice as much, 2 cents. In 1873, the first postal card finally is issued on May 12. There was a report in something I read that said the New York Times reported that 200,000 cards were sold in 2.5 hours on May 14. By September of that same year, 1873, more than 64 million cards had been sold nationwide. I think people adapted and found the value of postcards to be important. This is a sample of a government-issued postal card. You can see that it's 1 cent. And this particular one is not one of my grandmother's, but it was franked out of Kimball, Virginia, which is a wonderful place. Yeah, I'm sure it's a wonderful place to visit. As an aside, there's a book that I worked on for the Kimball Family Association that did a chapter on all the places named Kimball in the United States. And it's a really neat read. Anyway, so this was one I had adopted, to pick up on that topic. This is another government issued postal card that my grandmother actually sent out. She sent it to Mrs. Emma Field in Dark Harbor. She says, "Has Effie any books at home? I find some Bobbsey twins charged to her and wish she would look about as there is someone waiting to read them." Hey, yeah, okay, we know Bobbsey twins. At least I think most of the people in here know Bobbsey twins. All right, they began being a souvenir of sort. This is, something that started happening. So we're now in 1873, the Interstate Industrial Expositions held in Chicago, second anniversary of the Great Fire. The first American postcards developed by the Morgan Envelope Company or Factory of Springfield depicts scenes from that exposition, which meant people could have souvenirs. By the 1880s, postcards began having sketches or images of places on the message side, initially in black and white. With the Universal Exposition of 1889, visitors were able to acquire specially designed postcards, souvenirs, many depicting the debut of the Eiffel Tower. Here's a typical black and white image that would have been produced in the United States. What you're seeing is a pen and ink of, I guess it's geese in a cart being pulled by a horse or a donkey or something. The titling underneath it is "Seeing the Town," but the caption says, this is Thursday evening, August 8, 1927. A beautiful red sky sunset here. Fine evening for driving in Islesboro, though I see no one, and it looked like improving, but I don't know what that meant. Got your letter and postal. She got both things. Letter and postal, write soon, love to all, Ma. Now, Ma in this case is Mary Ryder Coombs, married to Henry Marion Coombs on Main Street, Islesboro, North Islesboro. Yes, sure. Okay, then it was the right word. Yeah. Thank you. I'll take the question mark out later. I appreciate that. Thank you. Germany leads in publishing colorful postcards, and there are some dynamic postcards that Germany has produced. They became known worldwide for chromolithography that produced beautifully colored postcards. And then on the next one, you'll see all the words on the top, all of those different languages identifying the document as a postcard. So you can see, and I said worldwide, and that's one of the colorings that they did of a rose here. And I think that says Belfast on the other end down there. All right, this is this may have been the context of that, but this is again from Ma. She says, "As I am in B," and I'm assuming in this case B is Belfast rather than Bangor, which is also in many of the postcards. "Will write to, as I'm in B, will write to let you know it's raining." How lovely. Went to see Aunt M. Not sure who Aunt M is yet. I'll work on that. She's very sick, can't last long, I should say. HRH is dead. Your pa says he's going to write, but I don't believe. Yeah. HRH in this case is Edward VII. He died May 6, 1910. And notice the RFD1 on there. We'll talk about the RFD notations later. Again, this is another one printed in Germany, and it's got those nice deep colors on them. I did not transcribe this one, but this was to her in Heartland, Maine. Photo cards. Bless Kodak's heart. Kodak launches a camera with negatives the same size as postcards. And these are the most fun. These are the ones I really, really like because they are going to be depicting photographs that were taken and attached to postcards, which was great. And so they were printed directly on cardstock, and people would mail these pictures to people because these were important to those persons receiving them. Henry Marion Coombs and Mary Ryder Coombs' house, Maine Road, Islesboro. Well, I've changed my mind. That's not my grandmother's house. All the barn and stuff are on this side of the house. I know where this house is now, but it's not my grandmother's house. This is another Coombs house that is, I don't know if you all are familiar with Meadow Pond and Main Street. This one goes, it's the house right before that. And I was talking to somebody on island yesterday, and he said, yeah, a couple came in from Timbuktu someplace, and they've been working on remodeling and everything. The round porch is gone. The round porch on my grandmother's house is gone. But I'm going to ask the people who are currently working on this house if they would like this picture. Now, I'll get that picture to them at some point. But now I know better. You can learn these things along the way, you know. Now, this one I know is true. Laura and Nelson and Laura Mildred Farnsworth Kimball house on Mill Creek Road in Islesboro. When I came up the first time, probably about 2011, maybe something like that, my mother sent this postcard with me, and she said, you can't come home until you find this house. I thought, okay, we have a challenge here. I'd like really to go home. But it is I don't know if many of you are familiar with this is Mill Creek Road, just before you get to the Mill Creek going south. And the house here was deep in the woods. And I don't know if any of you know who Paul Pendleton is, but Paul and I had been traipsing up and down the island trying to find this house. And bless his heart, he helped me find this house. It is there's a house that I'll show you in a second where my father and his parents lived. And then up a driveway to the right is this house. And then further to the top is the Nelson Gilkey house of the property there, which was owned by a woman named Nancy Green when I was there earlier. So, yes, sir.
Why is the section between barn and flat roof?
Hey, can you repeat the question because people want to know?
Yeah, you're right. I've forgotten that. Thank you. The gentleman was asking me why there was a flat roof between the house and the barn. I have no idea. Okay. But it's a pertinent question because it is an odd kind of thing to see there, because you would think that you would want to have that also dispense water. Yes, ma'am.
My grandfather's house that was built in early 1800 had that exact same construction, and it's kind of like a walk-through shed to go to the barn.
Okay.
And
Does it have a shed roof? Have a sloped roof?
you know, like it could be like a
Sloping away to the back. Yeah, sloping, going down to the back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I've seen in between
Yeah.
that had that. But you can't have a flat roof.
No, it doesn't work. All right. But as the gentleman mentioned, that there is a flat section there between the barn and the house. I've had some suggestions here that there may actually be some sort of a slope away from the house that we're not seeing from this direction, and that could very well be the case. The people who bought this house within the last 3 years live adjacent to the property, and they're going to be using it for overflow for their family. So they're going to be working on it and fixing it up so that their family members can actually have some place to stay, because there's no place to stay on the island unless you run a cottage. But anyway, And those people allowed me to walk through the house. I'd been trying for years to get somebody to give me permission to go in the building. And bless their hearts, they opened up the house to me and let me walk through the house. It was very nice of them to do that. All right, this is Mill Creek Road. And you can, hey, yes. That was my grandparents' house and where my father was raised. This is the Durkee house, and there's a girl named Cheryl Durkee who currently lives, I think, in Belmont, maybe somewhere up that way. And but the house that I was talking about is up the driveway from there. That might even be a piece of it there. My father wrote a nice little poem to go in their yearbook. And I tried to get the newspaper editor to put that in there when they were redoing the bridge a few years ago, and it didn't show up. And I was sort of hoping she'd put it in there. But anyway, so the bridge has been replaced, I think, at least twice since then. Yeah. Here's a couple more of those photo postcards that I think are so really neat. This is the Aldrich residence. I think Deb and I passed the driveway to that place yesterday when we were traipsing up and down Islesboro. But that's one of the cottages. Okay. Yeah, we know cottages. Yes. And the picture on the lower end down here is the bluff from Riders Cove on Islesboro. And again, and we were talking about this yesterday. Apparently, itinerant people would be coming to various places and do services like this. They would take pictures and sell them to the community. So this is my guess is that somebody, somebody's going to ask, is going to be paid to do this. They're not going to just stand there and take pictures for the fun of it. Okay. All right, next we've got 1893. The World Columbian Exposition in Chicago has 120 different images of this exposition printed privately on government postcards. Charles W. Goldsmith, he produces a souvenir postcard depicting the exposition, which is a big hit, and everybody else has to follow suit and create pictures that show other places that people would want souvenirs. Now, rural free delivery. I think many of us are familiar with RFD. It was the deliveries that were being made to us before we all had to have street addresses. This was the rural free delivery system created in 1893. Rural free delivery supported by the Indiana Grange. They're the ones that started it. And mail order companies thought it was absolutely wonderful because now they could deliver directly to John Q. customer. Local merchants fought it, and they fought it because the local merchants benefited from that walk-in traffic, people that would come in to the rail stations and buy things, or they would go into the local store that had a post office tucked into the corner of it. They were going to be losing all this foot traffic, and so they were not in favor. But of course, money rules. So the local merchants lost, the mail order companies won. Okay. Here's a picture of one of the early RFD #2 routes that I found in a magazine. It was the first experimental route for RFD begins in West Virginia. I think the phrase that they say is West by God, Virginia. I mean, that's what you call the state. Its implementation took several years and is considered to be one of the most expensive endeavors ever instituted by the Postal Service. Yeah. This is the picture that it was on the flyer that I want to thank Sharon and Jane and all the team and everything that makes this thing work. It was a beautiful flyer, and I really do appreciate it. I do appreciate that. This is the Belfast Waterworks and Dam here in Belfast. And notice the RFD1 to her was she's staying with somebody named Littlefield in Heartland, Maine. And it's another Littlefield name. Everybody knows. But it's care of M. Littlefield. How they find these people, I don't know. I mean, they don't have house numbers. They're just going to go deliver. Nobody asked me. All right. The Act of Congress, May 19, 1898. Legislation is passed to lower the postage rate on private postcards to match that of the government issue. So now we're at 1 cent for both postcards. But it also required private cards to state private mailing card authorized by why? I mean, come on, you know? Yeah, so this is one of the cards that, these are one of the cards that did that. Followed suit like they were supposed to. Yeah, and then this is another one that has that same language on it. She's in North Islesboro this time. But notice the two frankings on it. You've got Islesboro on one side, Belfast on the other. There was often the cancellation would be done at origin and at destination. So you had both both sides of the delivery system being marked on the stamps, on the postcards. Here's another one that had the legal language on it. Again, she's in North Islesboro, and that's sort of a pretty card there. I don't know. I did not do it. Yeah, the stamp collectors apparently she must have been collecting the postcards and then handing out the stamps to the people who gave them to her, or maybe the people who gave them to her took the stamps off and then gave her the postcard. Good question. All right, and the question had been, why aren't there any postage stamps on these cards? That's my guess. Golden age of postcards, like I said, 1900, 1915. Some cities had deliveries of up to 12 times a day. Now, I don't think Belfast did, but some places did. They were essentially, I've seen postcards that said, see you tonight. Excuse me? We can't get a postcard that you can see someone in a week, but they would say, see you tonight, and I'll be in later, something like that. And I'm going, okay. Mandatory legal, finally, they wake up and they get rid of that language. However, at this point, that postcard still had to reserve the entire back. These are called undivided backs. The entire backs had to be devoted to the recipient's address. Okay, so still clumsy, but on the front sides, there's often little white spaces where people can scribble or they're right over the image or whatever it is. Undivided postcards, which is what I'm talking about. Here's some undivideds. I didn't know Belfast had a racetrack, but apparently there was a racetrack, and that's it on the right. Yeah, we'll be home tonight to see you at church, But this is for a business called Blodgett's Art Photos in Belfast. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that name before, but it was done for them according to the information along the edge of it. And this is stamped in Belfast. This one is a message was actually written on the front of it. And this one, I don't know if this was one of my mother's or if it's one of the ones I actually bought, but I noticed that there was to a doctor here in Belfast on High Street. So that might be an interesting thing to track down one day. Not that I'm going to do it, but it's available if anybody would like to track the gentleman down. And I couldn't read the writing over there, so I didn't transcribe it. But it's Dr. Isaac Hills, I guess, here in Belfast. It's stamped out of Boston. Now, Kimball Castle, I did this one mainly because I'm a Kimball, and Deb is a Kimball, and what's your name again, sir? Rick is a Kimball, so we're all Kimball. And anybody else that's a Kimball? Yes, thank you. And, wonderful. Okay, so yeah, and I'll get you an application for the Kimball Family Association in the very near future. We'll work on that. But those of you who may or may not be aware, the castle burned down about 10 days ago. There's a whole big write-up in a couple of the local New Hampshire newspapers, and I'm going to do an article to go in the Kimball Family Association newsletter summarizing the information about the fact that it's now completely destroyed. So this is in I forget, it's north of, where does it say where? It's a picture from Belknap, as I pronounce it, I hope correctly, Belknap Point. It's in New Hampshire. The card was published by somebody in Portland, I believe, but it's a shame. They did a talk. The current owners did a talk to the Kimball Family Association reunion probably 4 or 5 years ago. They had just acquired it. We're going to make it an event destination kind of thing. And anyway, so I never got a chance to go to it, and I'm regretting that now. So, but yeah, that's a shame. All right, this is another pen and ink kind of thing. This one essentially simply says on the bottom of it there, receive the gifts, thanks. It's a thank you note, essentially, and this is how they delivered it. But I thought this was interesting. Place a 1-cent stamp here for transmission to any part of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. A 2-cent stamp to foreign countries. So where does that put Canada and Mexico? They're not considered foreign countries. That's okay. Oh, and that was to a Carrie Coombs that I will be researching. I think she's the M.K. Coombs daughter or something like that, out of Rhode Island. And so I'm going to be working on that. All right. Oh, and I love this. Notice the caption over here on the left. Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a yuck yuck, so I thought I would include that. I don't know if it was sent from a guy to a girl, or a guy or a girl, but it was sent to my grandmother in care of the Girls Club, North Islesboro, Maine. Somebody needs to talk to this person about how to spell words. Yeah, we need to figure that out. Yeah, well, it's yeah, it is what it is. I'm not going to judge this anyway. It's in Foxborough, Mass, whatever. Now we've got divided backs. This makes life a lot easier for many people. The Universal Postal Congress decreed that government-issued postcards in the United States could share space on the reverse with messages. That was effective March 1, 1907. Of course, people still had a stash of the undivided backs, and they're going to be mailing those out. So that doesn't all of a sudden mean that starting in 1907, everything's going to be a divided back. It just means that they can start sending them. And so everybody can now send divided backs. Linen cards and greetings from, those are some that you have probably seen. A guy named, I'm pronouncing it, Kurt Teich, something like that, expands his newspaper and magazine publishing company to include postcards. But he uses paper and ink in such a way that you have a linen feel on the postcard. I don't know how many of you have ever run into one of those, but they do really have a linen feel to them. However, he may be best known for his greetings from, with the name of the location in large letters. This is a linen card, and I think the handwriting is my mother's. I think she sent this to my grandmother because it was weird. This is a ferry. She knows my grandmother did ferry, but they run all the time. There's no schedule. When they fill up, they depart. And that's it. I mean, okay. I mean, I'm a structured person. It's got to have, I want times, I want places, I want things organized. This doesn't work for me. Just it leaves when it's full. But yeah, like I said, my parents traveled a lot from late 40s to around 1955. And so I'm thinking this is one of the ones that my mother would have sent to my grandmother. And there is your greetings from. Okay, I'm sorry I couldn't find one from Maine. I looked, didn't see them, but Florida's, another opportunity, Okay, I'll take them, yes, and I'll add them to my collection here. But anyway, that's he's known for this look, and I know we've all seen this look somewhere along the way with some state, some city, or whatever. All right, Payne Aldridge, unintended consequences. Okay, remember that phrase. Passage of Payne Aldrich tariff stopped the domination of the skilled and talented German printers. We're at 1909. Okay, the intent of the increased tariff was to enhance the production of American products. We've heard that line recently. However, American printers simply did not have the ability to match the high quality of the German lithography, resulting in a reduction of beautiful artwork available to us. In 1912, importers figured out that their livelihood was going to be impacted. So what they did was they bought all the stuff from Europe, which drastically increased inventory. And of course, an excess supply reduces the cost of the product, which means you lose profits. So unintended consequences. Now, white borders. In 1913, they began using a little white border around the edge of the postcard. They were printed on large, big, I don't know how big, but they were printed on large sheets, but they had to be then cut into the postcards, okay? But the white borders gave them a little bit of wiggle room as far as how close and how accurate that trimming had to be, help cut costs. All right, this one wasn't cut well. You can see that they trimmed off that part and trimmed off that. This one was an example of being in a hurry and not doing it good. C.E. Kimball was my grandfather. Calvin Eames, with an E, Eames, Kimball, Islesboro, Maine. They weren't real careful, but I love this. When you were down in the mouth, remember Jonah, he came out okay. Yes, sir.
Back of the car, so they cut the front correctly, but the back is printed out.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the gentleman just pointed out that the front came out fine. So the unalignment could have been a result of the unalignment on the back side of the card versus the front side of the card, the front being cut correctly and the back not being cut correctly. Good point. Good point. All right, here's a sample of the white bordering. Okay, I just thought this was a pretty picture. It's a church in Norfolk, Virginia, but it's a pretty picture of that bordering. Here's another. Now, I bought this one from my mother. She was raised in Cape Elizabeth. So I bought this one. It's the Cape Elizabeth Life-Saving Station and Two Lights House in Portland Harbor. But you can see the white bordering around, not the white from my taking the scanning of it, but the white that you can see around the image of the harbor. But that was the type of bordering that they did to help, like I said, cut cost. And this is one of my favorite cards. I love how pretty this card is. I just think it's just gorgeous. Yeah, that's a pretty card. Anyway. All right, another sample of the white border introduced to reduce production costs. Now, this is Boston College. I'm an ACC person. I graduated at NC State University. Thank you very much. And Boston College is one of my ACC teams. I suspect they don't have dirt roads anymore. I would think they've probably graduated to something a little more sophisticated. Yeah. But the thing that I noticed about this is that this is a commercial use of a postcard. My grandfather was a house painter. He hung wallpaper, that kind of thing. And it's talking in here about a line of wallpapers that he will get in 1931 after the first of the year that he can use in his business, which is a commercial use of postcards. End of the golden age of postcards, 1913. In the previous 12 months, over 9 million postcards have been mailed in the U.S. December 9th, come on, Carol. 1914, the outbreak of the Great War shifted people's attention from the collecting of postcards to serious work needed for the war effort. And I think we can all understand that. And by 1950, the golden age is apparently considered to be done. These are sort of a summary of those dates. Privately printed, government issued, Kodaks, 1 cent, legal language, no legal language, linen cards, divided backs, and postcards with white borders. That's just a brief thumbnail sketch of that. All right, and some of the postcards had comments to do with the postcards themselves. And that is not me, that's them. You know, IS''NT. Isn't a postal letter fine? There's nothing to do but write your name. Okay. That went to my grandmother in Seal Harbor. Okay. And this is another German postcard. Look how beautiful those colors are. They're absolutely gorgeous. This is Dark Harbor. On the backside, it says it's at Ryder's Cove. But the writer here says, "This is from me," does not help. Does not give me any information, but he does say, she or he does say, this PC, this postcard, is most, not almost, most as good as a letter, isn't it? So anyway, but it talks about, but in reading through these postcards, I began to get a sense that my grandparents got engaged a number of years before they actually got married in December of 1915. Okay. Dear Marion, I know I'm way down Guinea, but I hear the new Guinea is about part of the way down from the northern part of the island. But I know I'm way down in Guinea, but I hear the news after a while and I've heard the latest. My guess is they got engaged in 1907. That's what I'm guessing. You tell your mother for me that she has cause for watching you now, but I never really thought about it before. I don't know what kind of woman my grandmother was, but if she bore watching, that's interesting. Do you still think of going to Belfast for graduation? Mrs. P has gone to Bangor, but she sent for the tickets in Mildred. Mildred is my, anyway, relative. And she will distribute them. Hope to see you soon, and do go to Belfast. We'll have such a good time. This is from me, you know. But I love the brilliant colors in here. I think this is very typical of the German ability to make beautiful postcards. All right, again, somebody's talking about postcards. How many postals have you now? Because everybody knew she collected postcards. And that's what's written on the very bottom down here. And again, it's that pen and ink kind of look that was often produced in the United States. Again, the postcards gave an opportunity for people to have souvenirs. This was written by Aunt Ranie, R-A-N-E, and I'm not exactly sure that is right now. This was sent to my grandmother in Brighton, Mass. Pretty card of Newport came yesterday. I was much pleased with it, as I was there once before postcards came along, which is sort of touching that, you know, she recognized how lovely it is to have a souvenir from someplace that you've traveled. Valentine's Day card. Don't you care? It might be worse. This piece of card, this bit of verse. I wish that I could send today $1 million check, but say I can't. So we'll pay the price of this small card. It's cheap, but nice. Okay. So happy Valentine's Day. It's cheap, but nice, you know. Yeah, really. I mean, come on. I mean, let's be sentimental about it, you know. This is another card this is Dark Harbor, Maine. I don't know if you all are familiar with the bathing pool, but they blocked off a certain area along the road so that people could swim in there, and the tides didn't affect it. Anyway, this is from Urania, and I spent some time this morning with Deb hunting down who Urania was, and I'm still working on that, but I think we got it sort of lined up as Urania Coombs, daughter of Lincoln Coombs, who's son of Fields Coombs, one of the Fields Coombs. Anyway, Urania writes, don't fear sending duplicate cards to me. This is the first one that I've had from you. Begin to think I'd offended you with a hurried letter I sent in January. I don't know who Ryla Y is, but she is with them now. She and I am, which would be her husband, went to Belfast yesterday or today. She cooks and does something else for us. Curtis will be in the store with me. Our daughter, Lavina, who apparently is sort of like a real good family member, you know, semi-family member, has moved to Rexbury, maybe. We miss her so much. Edith and Emerson returned home. Looks thinner than ever. Hope to see you all at home right again. Much love, Urania. All is well with us.
It looks like on card, she books it, etc.
Oh, maybe that would be it. Yeah, Cooks and, yeah, because it was just a little funny little symbol. But I think,
The E is kind of.
yeah,
The books
very nice.
are like
All right, thank you. I will correct that and take my question mark out. And I'm going to believe you. Yeah, I think you're right. It could very well be that little mark there on the postcard is an etc. kind of thing. Good catch. Good catch. See, I knew I was going to learn something from y'all today. This is some of the we do. All right. I learned that my grandmother attended the University of Maine in Bangor rather than Orono, as her sister Olive did. And this was a letter to Olive in Orono. But it's a pretty picture of the campus, you know. On this one, Marion mentions that she went to see Birth of a Nation and wished that Cal had been there with her, which I thought was really neat, because Birth of the Nation is one of the early, very well recognized movies that I'm impressed, you know, that she was able to do that. This one is from probably one of her classmates, but I learned that there are only 2 more days of vacation. So I will remind you that you are president of your class. I had not picked up on that, but I got it from here. This is apparently a classmate. You can remember till you get where someone will remind you, can't you? How's this for the class colors? I don't know what, but she was in class of 1908, the first graduating class from Islesboro High School. And I confirm, now this goes to Belle Gilkey, whose headstone I saw yesterday, and was talking about her birth month as September. The only other birth information I found on her was just in the 1900 census. I didn't have anything other, I hadn't found anything up until this now. I still don't know the exact date, but I've got a much better sense. Oh, and this is my all-time favorite written language. The writer says, yes, I should have liked very much to have heard Helen Keller speak. I mean, that to me was jaw-dropping, you know. And notice how people would write upside down to avoid people, you know, seeing everything they wrote. There was a lot of conversation when Postcards first came out about privacy. Well, come on now. They started in, like I said, in Europe, and people were very initially timid about revealing family information and stuff like that to the general persons reading their postcards as they were sent in the mail. Well, too bad. But anyway, I love that whole concept. This is a note to my great-grandmother, Mary Ryder Coombs, from Mrs. L.A. Crossgrove, that she had been in Bradbury Memorial Hospital in Maine. And I like the part, I didn't transcribe it all, but it's something to the effect that, get well fast, for I miss the call on the telephone that tells me I am slow answering, so hurry and get home. Carrie is something else, but it's the idea is that now I know that she was in this particular hospital, and I've looked up that hospital, and the building I think is still there, but I think it's a private residence now. I'm not sure. Yes, sir.
It's now owned by the city, due to be destroyed.
I don't want to know that.
Oh, it's a good thing of that state.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm just learning that the Bradbury Memorial Hospital in Belfast is apt to be torn down in the not too distant future. Well, now I know. Thank you for that piece of information. Wow.
Didn't want you to be surprised.
I know next, because I was probably going to go hunt for it one day, you know, but I'm glad to know that. Thank you.
About a block up.
Okay, all right, I may go look for it. I'm sure Deb can show me where it is. Because Deb's driving. All right. This is from apparently another classmate or something like that. Oh, no, this is from Marion Coombs to Cal, my grandfather. And again, I think they were engaged for a long time, but this is 1912, okay? And say, I'm sending this card to say, I am alive. Olive and I just came from Bangor and I'm almost dead. The wind blows a gale. And that phrase, a wind blows a gale, I've seen that in all the little diaries that I've been reading. The wind blows a gale. The snow is drifting. They don't shovel roads here. Most of the teams go on the car tracks. Did you ever hear of the like of that? So people have to take the tracks. I expect to be run over. I don't know who Pink is, but Pink is coming over to spend the weekend. And she's got that in quotes, which I'm not sure if that's become a piece of language that people are using and calling them weekends. I don't know. I hope you are okay. We'll write tomorrow and tell you my latest plans. Now, if I'm Cal and I'm getting this letter from my fiance, I'm not sure I want to know what those plans are. You know, I'll let you know what my latest plans are. Yeah. This is Alden is my father's brother, so he's my uncle. I learned that Alden referred to his maternal grandmother as Gam, so Gam Coombs would be Mary Ryder Coombs. And this is when he was born. An acknowledgement here. The stork flew by and left with you a baby sweet. And Uncle Alden, we'll talk about Alden another time. Anyway. But send best wishes for we know your happiness is now complete. Anyway, firstborn child. My father was born about 5 years later. So. And this one, my father caddied at the Tarantine Golf Course there on the island. And this is a letter from Polly, who was the person that my grandmother expected my father to marry. Okay, this is the girl literally next door, and he was going to marry Polly. Well, my grandfather apparently explained to my father that he would be better off not marrying people on island, that would be a good idea if he could get off island to find a new fresh blood kind of person. Yeah. So anyway, Polly has written this card to my father saying that she missed him or something like that. And but he caddied like I said, at the golf course. And one of the things that I have kept from, and my mother kept and all that, is I think it's a $1 bill that was given to him as a tip by somebody that he caddied for, Katharine Hepburn. There's a little note in the envelope that says this was given by Katharine Hepburn. But anyway, sort of neat, nice story. Now, in these albums that did not get passed around, but one of the albums has the collection of postcards that were sent to my grandmother when she was elsewhere, not on island, okay? And they're all in the name of Coombs, which means she was unmarried. She was a teacher, and she would visit family members down in Rhode Island. So this is where I have tracked her presence. This is where she was physically located to receive postcards at those various addresses. And so it helped me sort of track where she was teaching. Some of the cards that are from the students, they've written to her, teacher Mary, teacher Coombs or something like that, or your student so-and-so. And then other teachers would write to her, well, how do you like your new school? Are you liking your superintendent? All of that. But there's a whole book devoted just to where my grandmother was when she was off island, and these are the places that are summarized in that book. All right, some of the humorous kind of thing. I love this one. Do you know where little boys go who smoke? And that's a priest talking to a boy smoking a cigarette. And the little boy says, yeah, behind the shed, sir. But I know the bits of humor, that kind of thing. Unusual cards with unusual elements. This was apparently a made-to-order kind of card with Dak Haba, purposely misled, sent to her in Heartland, Maine. I don't know who sent it. There's nothing on there to indicate who that was. And this one, I find this one intriguing because if you'll notice I should have probably turned the card the other way, but you can see how it starts out dark and gets lighter. I'm guessing that this was somebody that was using pen, the ink wells, and you don't see that much anymore, but this looks like an inkwell kind of issue here. And it's sent to Isabella Crawley, something like that, at Riders Cove. Yeah, Prospect Harbor, Vermont is Prospect Point in Rutland, Vermont. But it suggests using a bottle of ink. Now this one is a leather one, and there's one in the, and it's the only one she's got, but it's in leather. But notice that it has a time stamp as well as a date stamp on it. So, but it's leather. I mean, it's bizarre. Remember me to my owled friends? And this was real complex. You can see that the postcard had this other little envelope on it, and the language down the middle is what's on the little envelope. And the postcard message on the other side of the envelope says, write and tell me about your place. Are you near a church? I will answer and tell you about Bingham, which is where her friend was. I should have written before, but I had to send home to get your address. Cal wrote it on a piece of paper and Ma sent it to me. How about people shaving off their mustaches and the tops of their heads? What? I have no idea what that's all about. Apparently there was something going on, and have you heard about it? No. But it says, how are you getting along? I've got a fine school, a lovely superintendent, I guess, and an elegant boarding place. Live on a farm, school's just under the hill. Country is great. How about these people? But anyway, so Again, this was a real complex it had to have been hand delivered. I mean, I can't see this going through a postal service. Holidays and events, and these are just samples of these. This is a little insulting here. What if I am fat? There is all the more of me to wish you a happy birthday. Do what? All right. Master Alden Lincoln Kimball. So this was to him as a child, and because Master would be a young boy. This is to my grandmother in North Castine, Valentine's Day. And this was not the short but sweet kind of thing. Easter, again, pretty cards. This was to Gladys Gilkey in Islesboro. Thanksgiving card. It was delighted to know where you were, and I will write you a letter when I have time. We ought surely to brief Matt after sent. I didn't know she was married. Have you heard from Irma? Love, classmate, Georgia. I believe the ladies and the graduating class of 1908 in the high school started out with about, I think, about 12 people. All the men were no longer there at graduation. And I think that the six, I think it's 6 or 8 women who graduated together in 1908 stayed in close contact. And so I'm thinking that this Georgia person is one of the graduating people with her that time. But anyway, yeah.
I think that North Castine, because I live there, is not the town of Knoxville, is off of Castine.
Oh,
So today it would be.
neat. Oh, for those of you who didn't hear what she was saying that there was a section of Castine that's now called Penobscot. Okay, thank you. All right, where are we here? Anyway, this is a pretty Thanksgiving card, you know, but they used them like we would use greeting cards. You know, they would send out messages that way. This was to my grandmother in North Islesboro. It's a Christmas card, and again, the brilliant colors, got beautiful colors. Happy New Year. Oh, North Castine, okay. Thank you. I did some research on this. My Aunt Olive is thanking her, my great Aunt Olive is thanking her future brother-in-law, my grandfather, for lending her The Harvester. It's a bestseller, and I need to correct that structure down there. A bestseller in 1912 by Jean Stratton Porter. If you would look her up, she apparently was an incredible woman. She wrote a lot of books, and she had her own production company. They were trying to make movies out of her books, and she didn't like the way they do it, so she created her own production company. But if you get a chance, look her up. You were nodding a minute ago. Are you familiar with this lady by any chance? Or the book, The Harvester? Okay, I was just looking to see if anybody knew anything about it, but I did do some research on it, and I started to bore you with all that technical information, and I thought not to. Okay. Again, souvenirs and other commercial. This is Jordan Marsh. It's a commercial postcard, you know. It's in Boston, but you can see how, and across the bottom would have been a place for someone to be able to put a message when they sent it out. This is, again, my Boston College card. I didn't realize I had a duplicate in here, but I will take that out next time. And then we've got the old homestead in Hershey, Pennsylvania. This one is unusual because it's 4 inches, but it's only 2.5 inches high. It's not a normal size postcard. I don't know if that was just to be as a novelty, but it was different. Well, and that is not I mean, that is a good point. Having it be the same size as their candy bar, that's an interesting point. I'll have to do some checking on it, but that's a good idea. That helps explain why they changed it. Nice point. Thank you. Oh, and you'll love this. I don't fly anymore. I gave that up a long time ago. But check this out. This is the menu for United Airlines. And I don't know when it was, but the menu prepared by the United Airlines Flight Kitchen at Portland, Ernest Marr's chef, is going to be tuna fish, avocado pear, and an egg cocktail, saltine wafers, roast pheasant chicken with currant jelly, buttered peas, finger roll, lettuce, tomato and watercress salad, roquefort dressing, old-fashioned strawberry shortcake, coffee, tea, milk, and a dinner mint. That's a little bit different than the bag of peanuts they give you now. But remember when we all wore dresses and we dressed up to be on the plane? Yeah, different. And this is another advertising and a souvenir kind of thing. This is the place in North Carolina. It's the Elwood Hotel, but the rates are $1.50 without a bath and $2 with a bath. All right. So yeah, I mean, but it's a pretty structure. It is gone, but colors were excellent, and but I was just intrigued by those rates. I thought this is crazy, you know. My point, there are all kinds of postcards to improve images or family information, and that's my grandmother. That's her high school graduation picture. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. I'm so glad to see you. Anyway, but are there any questions? Any comments? I'll take comments all day long. Yes, ma'am.
I was struck at the very beginning when you were talking about when it first came in, that there were 64 million cards sent, like just around things under the Civil War. And we've only had how many, you know, some of you here know that, the total population of the United States that.
Why is that going backwards?
It was, yeah, but 6, 7, 8 million people at that time. Yeah, they said 64 million cards. A lot of people were.
Well, and I oh, come on.
I think it was 63,000.
Okay, and I will double check that. That's where I'm going back and try to figure out, get that information. All right, here. In September of 1873, there are 24 million cards sold nationwide. Yes, ma'am. Okay, that's the number of people.
Now, 2 per person.
Well, that's 2 a person, you know, roughly, and you send it out for birthdays and graduations, and but that's a big, but it is a big number. It is a big number for a small nation, you know. More comments, talks? Yes, ma'am.
Was it people, I know this is fun, but was it also less expensive? I'll bet it was, like it was in our lifetime. So that might have been another reason.
Yes.
Popular.
Well, and that probably is the case. The question had to deal with how did the rate for the postcard relate to those for envelopes and people sending letters? I don't know, but I have to believe they were less. And I've recently discovered, well, within the last month or so, that we have forever stamps for first class, but there's also a forever posture for postcards, for postcard stamps. Yes, sir.
The accident, you put 70 degree first class, and this be great for letter learning.
Okay, so a gentleman just checked for us and determined that it was 3 cents in 1873 for a first class envelope being mailed with a letter inside versus the 1 cent or 2 cent, depending on which one. Yes, ma'am.
It's very stable to keep hiring. About 1965, it's 4 cents.
Oh, really? Okay, it's been pointed out that in 1965, it was still 4 cents for a letter. Okay, all right. Yes, ma'am.
I love that in my recent past, there's been more of a resurgence around postcards. Lots of us are familiar with a local restaurant in Freedom, Maine, and you can send your postcards, and if your postcard is picked, you'll get to have a reservation at said restaurant, and they have inundated this little post office in the middle of nowhere with bazillions. And it has been just a loving thing to bring postcards back, but just something for fun. And I love the fact that they're using the initiative of, voting and postal campaigns to send out postcards to
Yeah.
talk up the vote. So, just little things to kind of with purpose and for fun and an activity that's not very hard.
And I was talking to some people the other day and told them that postcards are getting a resurgence in much the same way vinyl has been getting a resurgence. So there are people starting to, that's why he was asking me about the postage. Would you, excuse me? Yeah, somebody's probably thanking me for doing such a wonderful job. But it just turned off, yeah. But the idea is that the use of postcards is great, and they do have their own version of forever stamp. It does not have the word forever written on it because that would imply a first class stamp. So I think it just simply says postcard on it. It doesn't have a dollar amount or a cent amount on it. It is a sailboat. I've got some in my pocket.
56 cents now. They're no longer 1 or 2 cents.
Yeah, they're a little higher, yeah. But yeah, that was good information. Yes, ma'am.
When Kodak from camera, people paid for the film, but they got the processing free, and they had a choice. They could either have the film or they could have postcards.
Oh, really?
So Kodak, and it was the dual, I bet it was the dual postcard. That's another reason there were so many postcards early in the 20s.
Nice piece of, all right, let me repeat that for the sake of the recording here. You were just telling me that when Kodak released the Brownie camera, that they offered the purchasers to get make sure I got this right, they could either have the developing free or postcards in place. And that was a good option, and that populated the postcard element. Thank you. Yes, sir.
That somewhere, I think that film may have the rubber skin that you put on the back of the photograph you have, stamp it on, it says postcard, and get that little scroll, and it looks official.
Make your own.
Yeah.
Really? I did not know that. All right, I understand that the gentleman is telling me that he has a stamp that had been out for a while, that you could stamp your own photograph and create it to become a postcard.
Right?
Well, yeah, but the idea about having a stamp to be able to do that is wonderful. Yes, sir.
The Kodak's first 2 generations cameras, the film was not placeable. You had
Oh,
to send them back the whole camera. And so you bought it as a patent, you prepaid the developing and the film and the camera. You bought the whole thing, sort of like, when they used to have those little throwaway cameras. that
Yes.
You could give out at a wedding and there came like 6 of them. You paid for the whole process and you got back like 1 print and you could ask for additionals for that. Kodak was sort of the same way. You had to send them the whole camera back. And
neat.
they'd recycle them and then reload them the film and sell them to somebody else, but that's why it included processing, and you could tell what you wanted. Now, if you wanted multiple prints, you could check that.
Yeah.
You had to pay additional for that. But the original camera came with the film, the camera, and the processing.
And you sent the entire camera
Sent
back.
The whole camera back.
How interesting. I did not know that.
They had not yet come up with rolls to replace the film,
Okay.
except in darkroom conditions. So,
Right.
Um,
All right, so let me make sure for recording purposes, you're telling me that when Kodak first came out with a camera, that you could send the camera back, which would then also still have the film in it, and they would develop it and send you the prints.
right.
Okay, deal. Yes, ma'am.
There's a whole other program that's been done by the Historical Society about postcards and welfare. We had 2 photographers, Coombs, I don't know which Coombs it was, and Boston, I believe, it was, and they actually really, and these men traveled all over Maine and cemetery and taking photos. And then the fancy regular and really.
All right, so it was a person named Coombs and a person named Clausen would go around Maine taking pictures, and they would be then developed here in Belfast. Neat, thank you.
So that program should be on the Belfast Historical
Society website as a
Okay.
recorded program.
All right, so there was a recorded program on that. We can find it on the Belfast Historical site, okay?
And I think they went beyond Maine. I think they did
Okay.
New Hampshire and northern Massachusetts. And they were really well known.
Okay, all right,
And
Deb,
Future Illustrating Company, and they did all of those, not all of them, but a huge number. And they did go all over the country. They were based in Belfast, and that collection is largely now at the Belfast Marine Museum. They were done in glass plate negative.
And those negatives are still there. I was trying to look, thank you. The name of that company and I searched and couldn't find
Yeah.
it.
Piedmont Marine Museum has got an incredible collection, and I would encourage anybody to take advantage of the information that it can provide. Oh, yeah, in a second, let me ask some more questions. Yes, ma'am.
So just to follow up on what Deb said, many of those Eastern illustrated publishing company photographs are on Roundabout Marine Museum's website, so you
Okay.
can get them. But what I wanted to say is that at the Brooksville Historical Society, they have this handmade machine where you can put your real old negatives or pictures or whatever,
Okay.
and then there are light bulbs down below it where you could make your own postcards.
Really?
Yes.
At Brooksville? Okay, the Brooksville Historical Society has got a piece of equipment that allows people to put negatives on it and then make their own postcards. I am impressed.
Way back.
Okay. More comments, thoughts, suggestions, corrections, anything? Okay, then I think we're going to let Sharon stop the recording. So, all right, thank you.